When people imagine a medieval warship, they usually picture the largest vessel on the sea. Huge wooden walls, hundreds of soldiers, a floating fortress powerful enough to crush anything in its path. But history tells a different story. Some of the ships that changed the fate of kingdoms looked surprisingly ordinary. The greatest medieval warship was never simply the strongest. It was the ship built to solve the problem that mattered most at that moment. The best warship wasn't stronger. It was designed for a different problem. For almost 1,000 years, rulers, merchants, and warriors faced the same challenge. How do you control the sea when every coastline, every enemy, and every battlefield demands something different? The answer was never one perfect ship. It was a series of solutions. Medieval sailors understood something modern audiences often forget. There was no single ocean. The calm waters of the Mediterranean rewarded different ships than the stormy Atlantic. The shallow rivers of northern Europe demanded different designs than open coastal waters. A vessel that dominated one region could become almost useless somewhere else. The greatest naval powers were not those that built the biggest ships. They were the ones that understood the problem before building the solution. And the first problem was simple. How do you attack places your enemy believes are unreachable? For the warriors of Scandinavia, the challenge was not carrying the largest army. It was reaching the enemy before anyone knew they were coming. The answer was the longship. Its greatest advantage was not armor or size. It was freedom. With a shallow draft, longships could move through rivers, enter narrow coastal waters, and land directly on beaches where heavier vessels could never go. They did not need large harbors or perfect sailing conditions. And with rows of oars, they could keep moving even when the wind disappeared. A commander could choose the battlefield instead of waiting for one. That changed warfare completely. The longship made distance almost meaningless. An enemy could be protected by geography, rivers, or difficult coastlines, and still be vulnerable. But every successful solution creates a new problem. The longship was built for speed and surprise. It was not built to carry the resources of a growing kingdom across long campaigns. Raiding was possible. Sustained warfare was much harder. Far south, another challenge shaped naval warfare. The Mediterranean was a world of islands, narrow passages, and unpredictable winds. A fleet that depended only on sails could lose the perfect moment to attack simply because the air stopped moving. Kings needed ships that obeyed human decisions, not the weather. The solution was the galley. Powered by long rows of oarsmen, galleys could maneuver with remarkable precision. Commanders could advance, retreat, and attack even when sailing ships were helpless. Their advantage was control. A galley commander did not ask, "Will the wind help us today?" He asked, "When do we strike?" For centuries, this made the galley one of the most feared warships of the Mediterranean. But the same design that made it powerful in calm coastal waters created a weakness elsewhere. The Atlantic did not defeat galleys in battle. It defeated them with weather. Long voyages, powerful waves, and unpredictable storms exposed the limits of ships designed for a different sea. A warship could become outdated without ever losing a battle. Not because it failed, because the world changed around it. Medieval naval warfare was also different from modern ideas of sea combat. The goal was usually not to destroy enemy ships. It was to capture them. Ships represented enormous investments of timber, rope, iron, and skilled craftsmanship. A vessel that survived could become a prize, a transport, or a weapon for the victor. Battles often became floating land battles. Archers fired from wooden decks. Soldiers crossed between ships using grappling hooks and ropes. The ship's purpose was not simply to fight. It was to deliver warriors into the right position. This created a new demand. Warships needed stronger platforms, more space, and greater stability. And as kingdoms grew, another problem became impossible to ignore. Fast raids could win battles, but they could not supply an empire. As medieval states expanded, warfare became a question of logistics. Armies needed food, castles needed supplies, campaigns needed soldiers, weapons, horses, and materials. The sea became more than a battlefield. It became a highway. The answer was the cog. Unlike the narrow longship, the cog was built with a broader hull designed for carrying enormous loads across the northern waters. At first glance, it looked more like a merchant vessel than a warship. That was exactly its hidden strength. During the Middle Ages, trade and warfare were never completely separate. A ship carrying valuable goods could become a military transport when kingdoms needed it. The rise of trading powers such as the Hanseatic League showed this connection clearly. Economic power could become military power. A kingdom that controlled shipping routes could move resources faster than its enemies. The cog did not win because it was the fastest ship. It won because it solved a bigger problem. How do you move an entire kingdom across the sea? But larger ships created a new challenge. They carried more. They lasted longer. And they became much harder to control in battle. The next generation of warships would need to solve that problem. The cog solved one problem. It could carry what kingdoms needed. But another problem appeared. Large ships loaded with soldiers and supplies were valuable targets. If an enemy could board them, all that capacity became a weakness. The next challenge was not simply carrying more. It was controlling the battlefield once ships met. The answer was stability and height. Northern European shipbuilders developed broader vessels, including the hulk, with rounded hulls that offered greater capacity and improved stability in difficult waters. These ships were not created to replace every earlier design. They existed because the old solutions had reached their limits. A faster ship could not always win. A larger ship could not always fight. The advantage came from creating the right platform for the battle ahead. This changed how medieval naval combat worked. The ship with a higher position could control the fight before soldiers ever crossed the deck. Raised fighting platforms on the bow and stern turned ships into floating fortresses. From above, archers and crossbowmen could attack approaching enemies. Soldiers could defend their own decks while making boarding attempts far more dangerous. The sea battle was no longer only about movement. It was about position. But medieval kingdoms continued looking farther. Trade routes expanded. Rulers wanted influence beyond nearby coastlines. And suddenly, a new challenge appeared. The ocean itself became the enemy. Ships needed to survive longer journeys, carry more supplies, and operate far from familiar waters. The vessels that dominated coastal battles were not designed for this new world. The problem was no longer, how do we reach the enemy? It became, how do we reach places the enemy has never seen? The answer was the carrack. The carrack represented a new era of naval power. Larger than earlier medieval vessels, it combined massive cargo capacity with improved sailing ability. Multiple masts and advanced sail arrangements allowed it to handle longer voyages while carrying soldiers, supplies, and valuable goods. It was not the fastest ship and not the most agile. But it solved more problems at once than any earlier design. A carrack could transport armies. It could carry wealth. It could survive the open ocean. And because of that, it changed what kingdoms believed was possible. Naval power was no longer limited to defending nearby waters. Ships became tools for projecting influence across enormous distances. The sea was no longer a barrier between kingdoms. It became the path to expansion. The history of medieval warships is not really the story of wood, sails, and weapons. It is the story of human problem solving. The longship answered the problem of speed and access. The galley answered the problem of control without wind. The cog answered the problem of moving kingdoms across water. The hulk answered the problem of stability and battlefield control. The carrack answered the problem of reaching the unknown. Each ship was powerful because it matched its moment, not because it was the strongest or the largest, but because it solved the problem that mattered most. The greatest naval commanders understood this. The greatest shipbuilders understood this. And the kingdoms that mastered this idea shaped history. Because the future never belongs to the strongest tool. It belongs to the tool designed for the challenge ahead.